Welcome everyone to the Viper Pit, episode 6. I'm here with Jannik Blair. How's it going, Jannik?
Good, Clayton, yourself? Hanging in there?
Good. Yes. Yeah. Hanging in there despite the circumstances, but yeah, it's going well. So, just to start off, can you talk about your journey into the sport of wheelchair basketball?
Yeah, for sure. So I had a car accident when I was 12, and I grew up on a farm in regional Victoria, regional Australia. When I was 12, I was driving my granddad's ute, had an accident, broke my back, and then as a result of that, when I was in hospital and then later rehab, I was introduced to the sport of wheelchair basketball. I was fortunate enough to be in the rehabilitation center where I was doing my rehab. The basketball court there was being used by a few of the then Australian rollers players. There were two or three from Melbourne that were training for the 2004 Paralympic Games that were using the court to train. So whilst I was doing my rehab, I was exposed to the sport at its highest level straight away. So I was able to see these guys train and see sort of what they could do, and then able to watch them compete in Athens in the 2004 Paralympics a few months later. So I think it had a pretty big impact on me straight away, and then basically from there, it's something that I've pursued basically all around the world up until this point.
Awesome. That's a great thing to do when you're recovering. And I can imagine it's not very easy being able-bodied, and then all of a sudden you kind of have to adapt. So that's very, very interesting. Who are some of the players and coaches who had an impact on you at that age?
Initially, I started playing more as I guess, a social outlet. When I was growing up, before I had my accident, I played a lot of different sports, and they were obviously all able-bodied sports: football, cricket, basketball, those sorts of things. And then after having my accident, I couldn't continue to play a lot of those sports, particularly for sport like cricket or football that require the use of your legs. So initially, when I started playing wheelchair basketball, one of the other main attractions for me was the fact that you don't necessarily need to have a disability to play. So where I'm from a grew up on a farm in a small country town, no other real disabled people there. So what we did initially was my family, we bought a few extra wheelchairs, and my brothers and cousins and friends played with me. So I guess my initial exposure to it, or the people that had an impact on me in the sport, were those people, with my friends and family, that we played at a social level, just something so that we could all do together, I guess. And then from there, when I started to mature a bit physically and started to pursue the sport at a higher level, um, started playing different representative teams, and from there it went up. I guess an early coach that had a big impact was Tom Kyles. It was an assistant coach on our under 23 team in 2009, and then head coach in 2013. He had a big impact on me early on, and then probably the next one would be Ben Ettridge, who's the senior men's coach from 2008 until 2016, and had a lot of success with the Australian men's team, and then probably played a big part in helping me get to where I am today. So.
Awesome. Yeah, that's quite the journey. So obviously, as a professional athlete, there's a lot of workouts and training involved. I'm just curious, what are some of your favorite drills or workouts to do when you're training?
Um, I guess for me, I've certainly felt early on in my career, I was never a big fan of the gym. I thought it kind of took away a lot. Maybe sort of like late teens, early 20s, I hated it. I felt like I was always fatigued and could never perform as well after or whilst I was gymming. But after I stuck at it for a while, and we were obviously being in the national program, that you're forced essentially or encouraged strongly to do a gym program. And after maybe a year or a couple of years, and when I started to physically mature in my early 20s, really felt the benefits of it. So, and now I don't think I could play without it. So that's probably one of the main things I enjoy, is being able to gym consistently 3 or 4 times during the week. And it's such a big part. We're using all the same muscle groups in our upper body, and to have them in a top condition, I guess, is fundamental to be successful in our sport. So those are some big things, like spending a lot of time in the gym, and then on court. I guess for me, any drill that can be competitive. I think naturally, being basketball players or being athletes, we're all competitive people. We like to win, and I think we push ourselves the hardest when there's something on the line. So That's how I like to do any of the sorts of drills, so that you can keep score and you can compete against someone else, or if you're competing against yourself, doing it, timing your drills so that you can beat your previous time, just so you can always improve and try and win. Because I think that's the best intrinsic motivator that we have, I think, as athletes, and probably, I guess, people in general.
Definitely. So maybe like a scrimmage or something like that, where you're actually trying to
Yeah,
achieve a win, basically, whether it's against your teammates or not. I can imagine it's quite fun. And so, in terms of the sport itself, what are the opportunities like to play in Australia?
in Australia, we're blessed and cursed by our geographical location. It's a massive country, as I'm sure you know. It's probably similar to the size of Canada, but pretty sparsely populated. We've got about 25 million people in basically a continent-sized country. So that hinders us in a way that it makes it complicated for us to come together as a national program. Our league um, is kind of cursed by that as well. It's expensive and hard for us to travel. We can't generally bus from one city to another. We generally have to fly, which increase the cost. So our league is strong in the but lacking foreign players. We only have maybe two or three, four at most foreign players in our league at any one given time. The rest are it's a league entirely made up of Australians. So that helps the young Australian players in the sense that they get good exposure to the sport, but having more foreign players would increase the quality of the league overall. So it's it kind of helps us and hinders us in a way. You look at the Spanish league where I am now, and it's full of foreign players. Like there's a number of teams without a single Spaniard. So the level of competition here is certainly higher than the Australian league. But at the same time, the beauty of the Australian league is that you don't have to compete with foreign players. You as a young Aussie kid get plenty of exposure to the sport, plenty of time on the court, and plenty of time to learn. The other positive thing about our league is that it runs through the Australian winter, the Southern Hemisphere winter, which it runs obviously um, the opposite time of the year to the European league. So most Aussie players that play overseas, in whether it be in the United States or in Europe, return to Australia. We finish here, say in Spain in May, and we go back and start playing in the Australian league in May, and finish there in August, September, and then come back and play over here. So the beauty of it is that if you want to do both, you can play all year round and play the European League, Northern Hemisphere leagues, and then the Southern Hemisphere League. Um, so yeah, those are probably the main opportunities that we have for young kids in Australia, is to play in those leagues, and then they obviously try and go from there, use that as a stepping stone to play in either the college leagues in the United States or play professionally in Europe.
Awesome. And actually you transitioned for me. That was my next question was, so you play for Bilbao in Spain, and from what I've heard, Spain is one of the top wheelchair basketball leagues in the world, and there is players from everywhere. Like I talked to Philip Pratt last month, and he did a live the other day, and all the different cultures and countries involved in that league are quite impressive. Who are some of the top players that you enjoy playing against in the Spanish league?
Well, I don't know how many British players here, maybe 15 or something. There seems like there's another three or four every year in the league. They're always enjoyable. Then they seem to cluster together. There's a handful of them in Badajoz where Phil is. There's a few in Albacete, a few bouncing all around the place. So they're always good. There's a few that are, or a good amount that are sort of my age, mid to late 20s. We played against each other in the under 23s. That's Phil and Greg, and Ben Fox is here now, and then a few even younger ones that played in the next lot, and then a few of the older ones are Terry Bywater and Gaz that I've played against those guys for my international career, the last say 8 years, 8 to 10 years has been against those guys. So it's nice to have the international hitouts for representing your country, and then maintain that high standard of playing against each other in club ball. There's another Aussie, Bill Latham, who's playing in Madrid. Is a pretty impressive player. So I always enjoy playing against Bill. There's always a bit of shit talking and stuff that goes on court, because we know each other pretty well and that sort of stuff. So that's enjoyable. Trying to think who else. There's Abdi Jamu is another great class one that I enjoy playing against. It's always nice to see one of the best in his class do it and try and take away some little pointers from him. And for me to improve my game and improve particularly shooting is something that I would try and take away from Abdi. So yeah, basically wherever you look in the Spanish league, there's hard matchups and things to learn and things to ways to improve your game. Yeah, so
Yeah, it seems like a very, like I said, very multicultural and just different styles of games from all the different countries, like Americans, Brits,
yeah, there's a few
the
Americans here this year as well. Matt Scott came out and Jake Williams came, so that helps our league, makes us even stronger. And yeah, they're two of the best, two of the best in the world, and two of the best for their country. So having those two guys in the league helps us as well. And, yeah, so it's certainly a good place to be playing basketball at the moment.
definitely it sounds like it. And what team would you consider to be Bilbao's top rival, or maybe list a few if there's a few of them?
Uh, we always seem to have there's a lot of uh, it's always a tense matchup with Batterhoff. This is my fourth year here, and we've had some really tough games against them. I think we're probably pretty even in terms of wins and losses, but it seems to be whoever wins seems to win pretty convincingly, and there's um, plenty of plenty of emotion in the game. The Spaniards in our Bilbao squad, and then the British guys in Batterhoff seem to get into it pretty hard. Those two national teams play against each other a lot in the European Championships. Great Britain versus Spain, and some of the, I guess, key protagonists from each of those national teams are in each of those club teams. So whenever we play against each other, things sometimes get out of hand a little bit. So they're enjoyable games. They're interesting to say the least. And then probably we always enjoy playing against Ilunion. They've been one of the top teams or the top team in Spain for I don't even know how long, 10, 15 years. So we've had some good games against them recently. We've been able to win a few. They've probably beat us in more, but it's been nice to have been competitive with them the last probably 3 or 4 years. And then Albacete is probably the other big one that we always enjoy playing against, another one of the top squads. So them and the Canary Islands, actually. We always struggle with the Canary Islands at home, and we play them in about 3 weeks at home. So that'll be it. I've got a good squad this year too, young squad. So it'll be a tough game.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned the Brits and the Spaniards. That's like the British Bulldogs versus the Spanish Passion. You know things are going to get heated there for sure.
Get heated, yeah, absolutely, and a lot of shit talking going on and all that sort of stuff. So it's always an interesting game to be a part of. And I think as an Australian, I'm sort of kind of in the middle, just watching everything unfold. So it's an enjoyable game to play. I'll say that much.
Definitely. And so just moving on, we'll touch on Australia a bit because you are obviously on their national team. We always do this little question. Can you describe your Australian teammates in a few sentences?
The whole team.
Yeah, just the whole team and maybe mention a few players that are kind of the energy of the team.
Yeah, I guess now where the current squad is new, I guess, in a sense. Like we had a really successful team that the nucleus of that team has sort of evolved in the last probably 3 or 4 years. In 2016 was probably the end of that era, and now we're in a new era, I guess you'd say. And the main protagonist of that would be Sean Norris as our captain, and he's sort of our leader in that sense. He's extremely experienced and extremely talented player. And then we're sort of moving in a new direction. We used to play like a big man game, I guess, a lot of interior basketball and try and beat teams with size. Now we've sort of changed and followed in maybe the USA and GB's footsteps in terms of more of a midpoint game. And then so we're utilizing our class threes. So Tommy Nealthorne's probably the next name that you'd have to mention in that sense. He's super young, fast and talented, and he certainly brings a lot of energy in the way that he plays. So he'd be another one. And then Bill Latham's sort of our lone big man in that lineup. So he's carrying the load of the interior presence. So yeah, I guess as a team we're evolving and embracing that new game style of trying to play upbeat, up tempo, up the floor, and bring a lot of energy and aggressiveness. I guess is how we want to play. We didn't have a successful campaign in Rio in 2016, and we as a program put that down to a lack of aggressiveness. I think we played too scared in a sense. Like we played like we had something to lose instead of playing to win. So now we're trying to change that mentality and play to win, play to win on our terms instead of trying to react because we're worried about what the other team's going to do. We're trying to be the ones that are making the moves and make the other team react to how we play. It's essentially it. That's more than a few sentences, but I hope that explains more or less where we're at.
No, that's perfect. That's perfect. And who are some of the other countries that you really enjoy playing against that bring out the best in you?
We recently we've had really good hitouts with Japan in the Asia Oceania zone where we play has gotten quite strong recently. When I started playing, I played my first qualifiers in '09, and we would only have maybe a decent game against Japan, and we would roll everyone else by 30 or 40 points. Whereas now, Japan has gotten a lot stronger. Iran is a powerhouse now. South Korea has gotten stronger. China is increasing in their abilities. So, and Thailand's come out of nowhere as well. They've put together a nice little team. So we always have nice games, and we play them so frequently. So we know each other really well now. So I guess Japan's always a good hit out for us. They're young and fast and aggressive with their chairs. They make up for their lack of physical stature with speed and chair skills. And then outside of our own zone, we always have good hit ups with the USA. When I first started in the program, I would have said we had the wood on them, whereas they've had us the last couple of times. So we're trying to tilt that back in our favour now. Canada, we used to have really good games against. Now they're in a bit more of a rebuilding phase at the moment. So hopefully they'll get back to where they were years ago and give us a good run. And then the other obvious one is GB. They're a young squad, and they beat us in Rio in a game that hurt us a lot in the quarterfinals. So it's certainly one that we're looking at now, and we hope that with the changes that we've made, we'll be more competitive with them in the future. So
Definitely, yeah. That was a sad game. That was a tough one. I remember watching 2016, and you guys were one of the really good teams in that. But Great Britain's also one of the top. So that was a battle. That was a good game. That was quite impressive. And so I'm gonna touch on 2012 and your silver medal run. What are some of the top memories from the London Paralympics, and maybe what are some of the lessons you learned from that?
um, top memories. Well, I'll go with lessons learnt first. The main things I learnt probably didn't come until afterwards. I think that was my first major campaign with the men's team, and as I kind of touched on earlier, I came into the program into a really well established program. I essentially came into the starting five to replace a class one that had retired previously, and the core group of the team being Justin, Brad, Sean, and Mikey. The other four had played together for 15 or 20 years. They knew each other super, super well, and the way they played was like clockwork. And I just had to slot into that team and that group and do my job. And we had a lot of success. We won a lot of games, and I probably didn't realize at the time because I was 20 years old and hadn't had as much experience. I didn't realize how significant it was what we were doing, I guess, until you don't realize what you've got until you lose it, essentially. We won the world champs in 2014, so I didn't realize it then either until 2016 when we fell short, lost the quarterfinal, and sort of reflecting after that, I could really appreciate how impressive what we did in 2012 and 2014 was when I could compare it with a failed campaign, I guess. So that's sort of the main takeaway is like I can look at the 2012 campaign and the 2014 campaign as successful campaigns and analyze what we did, our preparation and our lead up and how we were feeling in the lead up to that. And then I look at 2016 and then can compare where we were going wrong and why the results didn't come and what we should change and how we should sort of prepare in the future for other ones. So, and then speaking specifically about 2012, I mean, it was an incredibly talented team that we had. We had a really good preparation, good lead up. For me, I mean, it was all a bit of a whirlwind. It was just a matter of rock up every game. We had a really tough game against Turkey in the pool games, I remember, and won narrowly. And then we beat the USA, which for me was crazy, like to line up against the USA. And they're always, even if we were favourites heading into it, they're always such a powerful basketballing nation, able-bodied and wheelchair basketball. They've got that presence, I guess, on the court. So for me, being a rookie, I guess, in my debut Paralympics, it was a really significant thing to beat them in the pool game. Then we beat them again in the semi-final. So that massive game to then come up against an incredible Canadian team, and Pat Anderson had an absolute day out. So not a lot we could do. We played pretty well, I think, in my opinion, in the final, but just not quite well enough. Pat had a day out, and not a lot we could do in the end. So, but no, it was an incredible experience, incredible tournament, and as far as the Paralympics go, I think the British did a really good job in organising it. It was well supported, and I can't fault it at all, apart from not winning the gold. That was the only.
Yeah, it's a tough one, right? I mean, it's hard. Obviously, you're there to win. You're professional, but I find from the coaches and stuff I've interviewed is you learn so much more from losing, because you can kind of pinpoint, okay, what did we do wrong here? And it's so tough to lose, but at the same time, I think you learn that little bit more about yourself and your team to, succeed in the future. And that's, so you touched on 2014, and that was a gold medal in the World Championships in South Korea. What was that tournament like? Like what do you think led to the success, and what were top memories from that tournament as well?
I think maybe you would say the loss in the final in 2012 was a big motivator for us. Our team stayed essentially the same. The core of it, at the very least, stayed the same, and we used it as a big motivator, knowing that we came so close. We had such an unbelievable tournament in 2012 and tripped at the last hurdle, and we obviously didn't want to repeat that. Canada didn't qualify, so we sort of had a new target. Like, we couldn't focus on, all right, we need to beat the Canadians this time, because they weren't there. So the next strongest, or the strongest outside of them, was the USA. They beat us in the pool games. It was the only game we lost heading up to the final. The semi-final, we played against a really strong Turkish team who had an incredible first half. They were beating us by 20 points at the half. I think it was 40-20 or something. At halftime, we played horribly, and they played incredibly well. And I thought we were done. I thought at halftime, down by 20, and not too many wheelchair basketball games you can turn around a 20-point deficit at the half. And but I think that's the beauty about having a team that's super experienced, I guess, and has spent so much time playing together, and we knew each other so well that I think the Turks knew it as well. Our first basket that we made after half time, you felt the momentum shift, and we were still down 18 points after that basket, but we as a team were more motivated, and we felt that the momentum was shifting. The halftime chat from our coach was super simple. He said, there's no time. Like, we've only got 20 minutes. Like, first good shot you've got, take it. And that's the only way we're going to win, is if we're going to shoot in the first 8 seconds of every offense, and we're going to need to make a couple of shots. And then once that momentum keeps going, we're just going to need to we can't take our foot off their throat. And it's an incredible feeling to be 18 points down and know then in that moment that we're coming, and see the Turks, that they knew it as well, that we were coming. And yeah, we ended up, I think we won by 5. It was a massive game. And then the final against the USA was almost, in comparison to that, the semi-final, almost anticlimactic. We started really well, completely contrary to the semi-final, and USA came back, and we won by 5 or 6 in the end. So it was important, I think, for us to get a bit of closure after the loss in 2012 with the gold in 2014, and particularly for the main core group. We had a few guys retire after that tournament. And I guess for them to retire on a gold medal, there's no better way to do it. So after so many years of playing with the national team and representing their country, it was nice for them to be able to hang it up on a gold medal. So.
Yeah, those are my favorite stories, when players play their whole career and then the last game is a final, they win it, and it's just, it almost brings the whole team to tears, because it's, what a way to end. And that's absolutely perfect. And congratulations on that win. And I wish you guys all the best in the future. And just to close out, so obviously during a pandemic, it's not easy especially for an athlete to, just keep in shape and whatnot. But what are some goals you hope to attain in the next few years?
In basketballing sense, is that the
Yeah, like either club or your country.
um, club ball? We're hoping to. Last year, obviously, in Europe, we were up to March, I guess, when the pandemic broke out and all the leagues were cancelled, and we had a pretty strong team in Bilbao last year, and we felt we were playing really well towards the end of the season, and things were going well for us. We had the final eight, or the final 16 of Champions Cup to play, and the Spanish league we were competing really well, and then not getting that opportunity to finish it was disappointing. And now, so we've got a pretty similar team this year. Most of the guys have stayed, so we're hoping to have some success and excited about having the opportunity to finish out a season this year. So, but then outside of that, after this season, I'm not sure what Europe holds. I'm aware of the fact, and I knew when I came over here that I didn't want to play my entire career in one place, in one country, or one city. So I don't know whether I'll look to another club in Spain or maybe look to another league in Europe. I'm super interested to live in France and Italy and potentially even Germany, although not as much for the weather. But so I want to make the most of that. I think it's an amazing opportunity we have as athletes playing wheelchair basketball now, is that we can use it to live all around the world. I've played and competed in the USA for 5 years, and now my fourth in Spain. So I'm super grateful to the wheelchair basketball has been able to provide me with those opportunities, and I want to keep pursuing those opportunities, I guess, all around the world. So, and then with the national team, we're hoping to have a successful campaign in Tokyo next year. It seems like a long time between drinks now. We played the bronze medal game. We won bronze in the Worlds in 2018, and now it's over 2 years since then, and we've still got another, say, 10 months to wait until the Paralympics. So it'll be 3 years essentially, and that's such a long time for us to not have been able to show what we can do on the international stage. And as athletes, that's all you want to do is compete, and to have had that put on hold this year because of the pandemic is, I'm sure everyone will agree that it takes something out of you, and it sucks to have to swap your years around and wait another one and put your career on hold for another year. So that's sort of the goal, is to medal in Tokyo, and hopefully it's a gold, but we're hoping to get back in the podium. That's where we think as a program we should be. And then on to there, the beauty about that will be just 1 year into the next World Champs in 2022, and we're hoping to maintain our spot as one of the best in the world. That's where we think as a program we should be, and that's the plan, I guess. That's the goal.
Yeah, definitely, and all the best to your club and country. And thank you so much for doing this, Jannik. On behalf of the Vipers, the Burlington Vipers, we are very appreciative of your time today, and we'll get a link sent out to you when it's posted.
No problems, mate. Happy to be involved in any time.
Yeah, for sure. And you take care. It was lovely to meet you, Jannik, and hopefully we can stay in touch.
Sounds good, mate. Appreciate it.
All right, man. Take care. Have a good one.